Good day everyone, I am Winmaflova Pepito, a BSBA FM2 student. Today we will going to talk about the film Ganito Kami Noon, Paano Kayo Ngayon and answer some questions about it. But before anything else, I would like to share a brief summary about the said film. The film entitled Ganito Kami Noon, Paano Kayo Ngayon depicts the struggle towards Philippine independence. It displayed an immersive look of Philippines during Spanish colonization. It portrayed how rich culture was in Manila and how influenced the city looked. While the far-flung areas of the country were shown to be otherwise, it represented humble beginning of the historical Philippines. It unveiled the real and true Filipinos and the land of the Philippines. It also flaunted the glimpse of the life cycle, civilizations, and struggle happened during the 19th century. Primarily, it was a vintage representation wherein it was established as the unique and vigorous identity of Filipinos pinned in the history of the past. Let's answer the following questions given. Describe the Philippine era as represented in the film. The 19th, as represented in the film, shows how accustomed we were in our simple living, keeping the Filipino traditions and culture. The setting was a typical town of the countryside where native Filipinos lived. Everyone was plainly dressed, wearing a buri hat, smoking tobaccos, riding a carabao, living in a bahay kubo, and children playing outside. Everything seemed so peaceful until the presence of the Spanish soldiers and priests were introduced. Philippines in this time were unfortunate victims of the unjust treatment, biased and deteriorating power of the foreign, just like how the main character of the movie Colas was treated. Colas had many encounters with the different definitions by different persons of the word Filipino. It was the century where the quest of finding the real definition of being a Filipino was emphasized, just like how the movie represented it. Next is understand Jose Rizal in the context of his times. Explain a brief summary of Spanish colonization of the Philippines. Dr. Jose Rizal, the national hero of the Philippines, is not only admired by possessing intellectual brilliance, but also for taking a stand and resisting the Spanish colonial government. While his death sparked a revolution of overthrow and tyranny, Rizal will always be remembered for his compassion towards the Filipino people and country. The life of the people during Spanish colonization is very different. The movie showed how gullible and naive we were in the middle of economic developments. Spaniards took advantage of that naivety, looked on us lowly. There was discrimination between different social strata. Only the upper-class Filipinos, the Spaniards, and later the American has the access to almost everything. We were ruled by the Catholic Church that time. The priests were Filipinos' boss, just like how Colas followed Padre Gil Corcuera ingeniously to go to Manila bringing priest's son Bindoy. Next is, are the situations shown in the film still exist today? Some still, but some were not. There are some influence of the Spaniards that still exist today, just like the language. Some of the terms that we used are based on Spanish language. But other than that, we Filipinos are being governed and are already under Philippine government. Government and culture were completely different from those times. Filipinos now have their freedom. Lastly, cite the vast difference of the situation during the Spanish era compared to the current system that we have at the present time. After watching the film, I noticed that there are a lot of changes from the way people have lived before. From the way people dress, talk, and transportation. I would describe 19th century Philippines from elaborating the changes on our lifestyle and culture from before and in our current time. The way people dressed back then screams their status in what kind of life they are living. They can easily recognize if you are señorito or just a mere citizen. It also It is also evident in the film on how transportations has drastically improved. Throughout the adventure of Colas from getting Bindoy to going back to Manila, we can see that they were only walking. As we can see in their adventure, the roads were not yet paved. Then I realized how lucky we are to live in this time of life. Going from one place to another was not hard as before. We now have cars, bus, airplanes, boats, and etc. The most significant thing that I like in the 19th century is the fact that there are a lot of trees in the surroundings. The nature was still beautiful and green. Unlike now, all you can see is infrastructure everywhere. Talking about infrastructure, most of the houses back then were made of woods. Having a house made of rock symbolizes that you're a wealthy person because only people who are wealthy who could afford a house like that. The mode of transportation then does not involve any machinery or cars. They only use kalesa. They use animals like horses or carabaos to pull the carriage and go to places they are going. That's it for my video and I hope you learned something. Thank you and God bless.